Welcome in on another Tuesday night to another episode of Closest to the Wind. It's just the two fellas here tonight, me and my good man Nick. Nick, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, man. It's Tuesday night. Memorial's coming up on Thursday. Another fantastic tourney with a pretty decent field. Everybody just chomping at the bit to get some good golf in, some reps in before the Open in 2 weeks. But Jack's Place is always fun, especially after the reno, and I'm sure we'll dive into it. But yeah, it's a great night at my house.
Lovely. No, and we've if you think about it, again, this like whole 2021 golf has been a sprint. There's been nothing but big tournaments. It seems like sandwiched together. Memorial is no different than that. I think one of the players' favorite golf courses to play all year. I've had the opportunity to go check it out. Of course, this was, prior to the renovation that you hit on, but it's a great field. The guys love playing here. Jack put a bunch of money, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million into the golf course. And really mostly centered around the bunkers and the greens. They went with the new air system, which allows them to kind of like harden things up a little bit as far as the greens are concerned. So they can kind of control them a little bit better. But 8 million's a lot, and the bunkers are deep, and the course is long, and the par fours are hard and long. You're gonna have to score, but this is a super awesome golf tournament. It every single year, again, it brings the best players. I mean, you don't see many guys skipping out on this one. It's one of those when I look at it in perspective of you look at your big boy tournaments, you have your 4 majors, right? You can say the players is the 5th major. Memorial is in that tier right below, maybe the players. I mean, it's that big. The Riv, tournaments like that, guys are going to be there. This week's no other. Everybody will be enjoying some milkshakes. But I think we're right around 7,540 yards, par 72, which seems to be kind of the norm these days on tour. But what are you seeing in the golf course this week?
I'm just amazed that, he still kept 4 greens the same. I mean, if you're going to, do a complete reno, just, just do all 18. But I'm curious to see from the inside out really how it plays, with the 14 greens and then, some new bunkers in there, just everything is different. I mean, it's the same, but it's different. I mean, last year was really interesting because I just think he just, for lack of a better way to say it, got pissed off and said, fine, I'm just going to make this thing as hard as I possibly can. And I think he did. And I that's one of the things I like about him, because he's old and he just doesn't care. And, he knows what golf was, and that's what he was raised on, played on, believes in, and he thinks it should still be the same. And I'm glad that I'm not a I'm not a 20, 25 under tourney guy. That just doesn't really pique my interest. I'd rather see a little test and grind and skill in there somewhere. I'm not saying it has to be a British Open even par massacre or whatever you want to call it, but there's a happy medium in between there. And I think the 4-inch rough, I mean, that's the thickest they've seen in a couple of weeks for sure. I mean, that's going to be a monster. I mean, the greens are going to be firm, fast, and they're still going to have that new green smell. So I think there are going to be some people that, see it and, do well on them, right out of the gate. But I think there are going to be some people that struggle. So I think you're going to see clusters of scorers, kind of grouped together at the top. Again, you're going to see some folks in the middle, and then you're going to see some folks that just can't get out of, Dublin fast enough on Friday. And then there's always the wild card of the weather too. At last check, it looked like it was still going to be somewhat interesting on Thursday. So, score early, score a lot, and hopefully you can, dodge a couple of bullets and outlast the guys behind you that get caught and can't do wonders with it. But Jack's tourneys are always fun. Concession was great. The Nicholas Tourney course, the Amex is nice. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this first go round holds up and what's in store for the next 10 15 years.
And it's funny you brought it up. I was reading last year they had guys that the leaders were on the back 9, they were pulling up turf on the golf course on the front 9 while play was still going on. And also to your point, I mean, we're talking about, you could argue Jack or Tiger. I think those are kind of the 2 greatest golfers of all time. Jack's courses, he's not going to let anything kind of be made a fool of, right?
right.
for lack of a better term. And we know he's got the wallet to make it happen. We know the property is the golf course that you kind of made out there. And that's really the cool thing about this golf course is yes, it can be hard as hell. Especially with winds. It's very difficult. Of course, we're seeing a different golf course to an extent, but we kind of know the layout of this golf course. But guys enjoy this because it's a fair test of golf. It's not when you go into a U.S. Open and it's absolute carnage out there and they're losing the greens. That's not going to happen here. This is everything's in front of you as far as the golf course itself. It just takes extremely good ball striking. And Nolan, we're going to jump into the model here shortly. One of the things that you mentioned that was interesting is the rough length, right? Because that's the great equalizer in distance, right? If you can hit the ball, however long you want, if you're playing from 4-inch rough, there's multiple times where you're just going to have to take out a wedge and hack it out.
Yep.
And so that's certainly interesting. But it'll be a fun week. Let's hop right into the model for you this week. What do you kind of weigh? And this is very interesting because you and I haven't talked about this of what you find, to be important this week as compared to me. So I'm interested to see how you're kind of weighing things on your end of this.
So it probably all starts, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but I'm going to paraphrase it as best I can, but I think Jack pretty much said that, hey, when you come here, I believe golf is a test of, all the skills and all the clubs you have in the bag. So I fully expect, there's going to be some holes, that are going to, the tee shot's going to, be important. It's going to require a little bit of length, but at the same time, your approach game, your iron shots are going to be key. You're going to have to be able to scramble, and you're going to have to be able to putt. So it's going to take, somebody that's probably in a little bit of form, that, all aspects of their game are, working pretty well, that, is going to probably miss it every now and again. So, they're probably going to have some, above average scrambling skills, and then probably catches, a hot putter. That's always kind of hard to predict.
Yeah.
I don't want to say like the Masters or Augusta was the number one course I used, but if you read between the lines, I mean, and kind of look at some of the history of the place, he could knock it down and build it up again, and I think it's going to end up being pretty similar. So, most of his courses are really second shot courses, but they do require decent around the green play, and they do require decent around the green play, and they do require somebody that can putt a little bit. So normal for me, the form. So I usually break it up into 3 groups, and as far as the 3 groups go, I usually try to look for something around the 45-day marker. I look for something in that 90-day marker, and I look for something a little bit beyond that. So I went back in that short-term form about as far back as the Zurich, about the middle of April. And then sort of that middle-term form range, I went back as far, a little further. I think it's about 100 days, give or take a couple. I went back as far as the concession. And then as far as a longer-term period, I went back into the fall. I think it was about 220, 225. But I started at the Zozo Sherwood, so I made sure to loop in 2 of Jack's courses as far as the form, and I weighted it a little more back heavy to really focus on that 100-day period and that 200-day period. The odds are a small percentage, but I pretty much normally look at wins, top tens, miscuts, so that's a factor in there. The course history is kind of interesting because I really wasn't sure what to do with it and quite how to, put it together. So I did use the course history. I went back about 8 years, but as far as the course history goes, at least in the course history aspect of it, I didn't use any of the workday as far in the course history section, but I made sure to have a comp section and a Nicholas specialist type aspect of it secondary. So the course history has the same weight as the comps and the Nicholas courses, but I didn't use all of them. I used the ones that I liked and had I thought made some sense. So I looked at Sherwood for the Zozo. I mean, I looked at concession for the WGC. I did look at I put the workday over there. As far as the comps go, PGA made some sense. I mean, Valspar made some sense. You know, I even threw in Kiowa a little bit just to kind of, you know, dial up the difficulty aspect. And then so that's in there. Then as far as the, you know, stats aspect of it, it's still pretty approach heavy. It's, you know, that's more than normal as far as the weights go. The around the green is dialed up a little bit, you know, comparatively speaking. Off the tee is still in there, but I probably dialed it back a hair. I've still got the, you know, driving distance and the longer par fours and, you know, some par five stuff, you know, baked in the other half of it. And then as far as the, and then the putting, I basically went, you know, 36 rounds on bent, but then I looked at, you know, 3-putt avoidance. I looked at some links and, you know, success on some, you know, courses that I thought had similar elevation type changes. You know, I looked at masters putters and I looked at, you know, concession putters. I looked at riv putters and, you know, tried to come up with a little bit of a list there. And then as far as the other stats, it's the normal stuff. You know, proximity was big, scrambling was big. You know, the longer par fours, like I talked about, greens and reg, you know, stuff like that, and threw it all together and see what spit out. And here we are.
Yeah. You know, and I love that because I think you and I kind of are thinking the same thing as far as distance is always going to be an asset, right? I mean, no matter what golf course you're playing, a distance is an asset. However, when we talk about that rough that we recently touched on, it does change things because I think it all of a sudden shifts, you know, your strokes gain off the tee or your distance rather to more of your strokes gain approach to green. And I think that becomes a big statistic. That's kind of something I weighed heavily on this week as far as the guys that I was picking. And I don't have any model or anything like that. But my dumbass, who I was picking, I think, you know, approach to green was a big deal. So I guess we'll get into it. Sounds like you got Justin's picks there on your end. Is that right?
I do. And I'll say, so long and short of it. So the model is kind of built two ways this week. So I gave you the, you know, broad strokes, but just kind of narrow it down a little bit. I do think you need a well-rounded game. So as far as the model and some of the picks, diving in a little bit, there are 6 golfers that were in the, now again, 121 man field, but there are only 6 golfers in the field that rank in the top 50 basically over the last, you know, 60 days in all 4 strokes gains categories. So that kind of narrows it down a little bit for me. And, you know, we'll touch on some of those guys.
Yes.
And then the other aspect, you know, if you're not really well-rounded, you're going to have to be pretty elite in some aspects of your game. So I look for golfers that were in the top 10% of the field that, in at least two of the 4 strokes gains categories. Oddly enough, there turned out to be 10. So between the all-around guys that, you know, show up pretty well in all 6, then you've got 10 that kind of show up in all 10, or 10 that show up in 2 of the 4. Again, it was interesting to me because of the 10, you know, you've got 6 that show up off the tee, you've got 6 that show up with the approach, and then you've got 4 and 4, you know, with the around the green and the putting. And so that's probably the way I looked at it, more of a 60-40 kind of split with the ball striking versus the short game. But I do think in the end, I think you'll be surprised that I think some of the short game guys are going to rise at the leaderboard, and you're actually going to need probably somebody with a decent ball striking to probably, you know, blow up off the charts with, you know, a pretty good short game. But those 6 and then the other 10. So that's probably the core of my picks and probably what I'll end up putting out in the article, you know, tomorrow and whatnot. But yeah, I've got mine. I've got Justin's. Curious to hear yours, and let's get after it.
No doubt. And yeah, you can't really hide your game around here, to your point. And so finding somebody that has somewhat of a well-rounded game, or it's just, there's going to be a guy that has a week with the putter, and that's just not something that we can necessarily tell you or predict. It's just the way it is, right? I mean, somebody's going to have a week with the putter and contend that we don't see that's going to be there, but it's just going in with a well-rounded game. I mean, clearly when you're playing well, tee to green and whatnot, it's going to be beneficial
for sure.
All right, man. So I'll let's go ahead. We'll start with our guy Justin here in the 10K range, if you don't mind.
Sure. So Justin started off with Jordan Spieth, of course. You know, I just saw Jordan and started talking, but Jordan noted that basically the way he's been, Justin noted about Jordan that the way he's been playing, his form has been so good that, he's pretty much a must play right now. And, it works out pretty well. I mean, he was number one in the model too, so I don't have an issue with that pick. I think it's actually pretty good. He actually also jumped to JT, and he noted that he's got 2 top 10s in 7 starts, and he liked the discounted price. He thought, that made him a worthy play for sure. He then jumped to Colin Morikawa, and basically he liked the fact that he won at concession. He thought it was a comp, and then he won the workday last year. So his 3 10K plays were JT, Jordan Spieth, and Morikawa, and he decided to fade Jon Rahm. And I think he took a look at the model and how I sort of figured out, or how I projected maybe the points would lay out, and he didn't think the value was there, and he'd rather play the other 3 guys. So Rahm was Justin's fade.
Yeah, and I get it, right? I do. I mean, it's funny when we think about Jon Rahm because he hasn't been winning at the clip that we expect. I mean, the guy's got, 10 top 10s on the year. It's hard when you look at Rahm at the value of 11,100 than if you were looking at him at 10,300, right? I'll just go ahead and go here, and I'm going to take Spieth out of the gate, and at some point it was a laughing matter, but at this point it's to Justin's point. How do you not, right? Statistically, he's been the best player in the world. I will also play Justin Thomas for a lot of the same reasons Justin did. It's a value pick here. I was actually impressed with a T40 last week after the way that he started that golf tournament. There was a time that he was 5 over. He was playing in a concrete ditch for his second shot at that point, and things looked real. I mean, he was throwing a fit. He ends up making the cut. He ends up, having a T40. His game, he's had a really solid year, although he's had big wins. And then at times we've kind of lost him for a little bit, right? We're kind of like, where the hell is Justin Thomas gone? Which makes it flaky at times to bet Justin Thomas. It just does. It's not like you're feeling that comfortable about Justin Thomas at that point. But I still have to take him here. He does too many things well. And I just want to be on the wagon the right week of Justin Thomas. And so maybe it's this one. I'm going to roll with JT. I'm also going to go with Colin Morikawa. There's not much to say, right? Colin Morikawa is like 21st in strokes gain approach to the green, first gain in strokes gain approach to green. He's the best iron player on tour. I talked to you about how that was very important to me this week. There's nothing that makes you not want to bet Colin Morikawa on a weekly basis outside of the flat stick, right? I mean, that's just what it is, and it sucks. But again, I think with changes to the greens, maybe it somewhat helps level out the playing field for him to an extent. All he needs is an average putting week. He's going to contend because he's going to be, in as far as strokes gained approach to the green, in proximity, he's going to be there. He is every single week. So I will take him. I'm going to go back to the old well and fade our guy Rory. Listen, I know that he talk about a guy that we don't know what Rory's going to show up. And outside of 1 week, I feel like we can kind of say that more than not, the other Rory showing up, right?
Right.
To an extent. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, he had a 29th at Kiowa. It's just, for me, his strokes gained around the green, his chipping, it's tough with Rory because the guy has, for years, in my opinion, struggled to flight his wedges correctly. He's not great from 100 yards and in, which is a area of his game that he needs to feast based off of his ability to drive the golf ball. I'm going to fade Rory here. And it's again, who's going to show up as far as Rory McIlroy this week? When we're talking about these guys, I mean, there's not going to be a guy that you pick or fade that you would be surprised if they won from this category. I will go ahead and fade Rory though.
So before I dive into mine, so I'm gonna veer for a second. So you're not. Let's touch on Colonial for a second.
Sure.
Round 4 bother you at all? You still believe in your boy?
Yeah. No, I do. Round 4 wasn't good at all. It's just, it doesn't worry me because he's constantly putting himself in that position. And I mean, it's been weak. I'm not saying he's always going to be there on Sunday, but he has been. He won a few weeks back. That gives me confidence, or maybe it wasn't a few weeks back, but prior to the Masters. He's just put himself there all the time. And I think his game, it's if for a guy that we talk about, his tee to green game has been fantastic. And then outside of Sunday last week wasn't great. And those things happen, man. It's hard to put it together for 4 days. One of the things that actually stood out on the opposite side of that question is how well Jason Kokrak has become as a putter. From a guy that statistically was terrible to be in a top 10 putter on tour. It's pretty fantastic because Jason Kokrak has always been able to hit the ball 320. And so, but yeah, it doesn't worry me now. If it happens a couple more times and we see that on Sunday, then yeah, it may become a concern. It's just for me, it's hard not to bet Jordan Spieth at this point. Just because if there's one guy I know that's going to be hanging around, it's going to be him at this point. He's just proven it the last 4 or 5 months of the tour.
Just thought I'd ask since you're one of the bigger Spieth backers out there.
It bummed me out though. It bummed me out to kind of not close the deal against Jason Kokrak.
I mean, especially on your home course on a long weekend, it was rough all the way around. I think for a lot of people,
it certainly was.
All right. So, I'm going to take him as well. So I guess that makes us 3 for 3. I mean, form's there. I think he's got 5 top 10s the last 6 starts. So, I mean, that's a check.
That's pretty good.
Even here, I'll take that all day long, cashing checks and making WGCs and qualifying for, major events and things like that. Yeah, for sure.
No doubt.
And then even coming here, I mean, he's got 5 top 20s, in 8 trips here. Now, granted, if, I've got the workday separately, I mean, he missed that, but still, I'm not really factoring in, but I mean, I think he can get his way around the course, pretty well. Most of the markers I used basically about the last 60 days. So that's going to be pretty much from including Valero on forward. So in his case, that's 20 rounds, and he's one of the 6 guys that's in the top 50 in the 4 major, strokes gains categories. So, he's 28th off the tee, he's 12th in approach, 3rd around the green, and 14th with the putter. I mean, that checks a lot of boxes for me for sure. And then just kind of narrowing it down into an even 24 rounds compared to everybody else in the field. He's 40th in driving distance, which is a check for me, 14th greens and reg, 4th in sand saves, because there's tons of sand around here, new sand, and he's like everybody's going to end up in it at least once. It's just going to happen. 6th in birdies, 10th in bogeys. So I mean that checks. And then the model really likes him as a whole. I mean, he's in the top 10% of everything with the exception of the comp category. Now, the way I built the comp category, like I said, it's basically got the Nicklaus and it's got the comps I used, but he's actually top 10% in the field of Nicklaus. So it really just depends on how you put it together. So he actually he was number 1 in the model overall, but he could even be even better if I cooked it up a little differently. So yeah, I'm going to take it. He's going to be up there. Maybe he doesn't win, but again, I think another top 10 or better is probably on the radar for him. So that's a check for me. You guys both talked up, JT, and I'm going to play him too. I mean, one of these times, he's going to come in here and win. And I still feel like he probably feels like he's owed one from, workday since, Morikawa, got that one from him, but it was probably, his to have anyway. But, there's only 2 golfers in the model that are actually this week that are in the top 20% of everything, and JT is one of them. So that's usually a play for me. So he's on my list because of that. And the things that stood out since Valero, he's 22nd off the tee, he's 22nd in approach, and 50th around the green. So the putter's the only thing basically the last 2 months that's actually been letting him down. But the last 2 tourneys, it's actually been okay. So it's the other aspects that have kind of if he can keep it all glued together and ride the recent putter wave, then, he ought to be right there at the, end of the week too. He's got, 5 top 40s in his last 7 starts. As far as the comps go, he's number 2 in the field with the Nicklaus, and he's number 9 with the comps overall. So that was a pretty strong marker for sure. And then even with, his ups and downs, the last 24 rounds for him, he's 39th in driving distance, 31st greens and reg, 26th in birdies, 25th in bogeys, and not that very many people will find him out here, but he's actually first in the field in eagles. So maybe he can latch on to one somewhere. So Spieth is 1, JT is 2. I struggled really with the last 4 guys because we say this every week, but trying to find another guy to play and another guy to eventually fade is just
sucks.
Maddening.
It's hard, man.
When in doubt, I guess I tend to trust the model a little bit. So I started eliminating some of the lower guys down and trusting my handiwork. So it's a scary third, but I'm going to ride the Rory train and give it a shot. I'm going to assume that, maybe he wants to come here to Jack's Place and win. Maybe he's going to treat it like Tiger did, and being one of the more serious tourneys that he likes and put on his game face for this week and, maybe actually show up. Rory is a second guy that over the last, 60 days that, matches up top 50 in all 4 of the strokes gains categories. Now he's got a smaller sample size, and his is only 10 rounds because, he made the cut, or, he's got Quill Hollow, and then, he missed the cut, and then he got the 28th at the other one. But he's 31st off the tee, 7th in approach, 48th around the green, and 27th with the putter. So as a whole, he's got 3 top 50s last 5 starts. And then the course history is kind of interesting because he's actually got 5 top 15s and 9 starts. So I do think he kind of likes the place. And if you believe in that whole, Masters kind of comparison, it makes some sense because he's got, pretty decent form there too. As far as the comps go, he is 7th with the Nicklaus and 2nd in the comp. So he's almost kind of the reverse as far as JT goes in the comp aspect. And then the last 24 rounds, 2nd in driving distance. So the extra link's not going to bother him. 24th greens and reg, and then 11th with the birdies. So, that's a pretty strong profile for me. And it just happens to be that, Spieth is 1, JT is 2, and Rory's number 3 in the model. And it's not something I usually play, but it worked out pretty well for me this week. So I'm going to tail Justin, and I don't like doing it. Don't feel good about it. It hurts my heart a little bit, but I'm going to fade Jon Rahm. So I don't really like the whole defending champ angle, but I put an asterisk by last year just because I'm not sure that anything anytime soon is going to play, as wicked crazy hard as, last year's did. So if you take that out, he was 27th at the workday, and then 4 years before that, he missed the cut. So his course history is kind of sketch, but maybe he just was the best grinder last year, we'll say. Last 24 rounds, he's 92nd in pars. So there's definitely some volatility in his game, the last few tourneys for sure. And then if you look at the strokes gained since Valero, the things that kind of stood out that I didn't like in his case, so that's a 14-round sample. So he's 74th in the field with approach, 68th around the green, and 61st with the putter. So the only thing that's really working is his off the tee game. The other stuff is middle of the road. I mean, he could easily flip one of those and go from being on my shit list to being, up the leaderboard really quick. But, when you're looking for some red flags somewhere to try to eliminate somebody, that was probably the easiest guy to take a look at.
Yeah. What's funny is I had 3 guys that were in that fade slot at one point, right? Bryson was there because I was telling myself, listen, I just think I'm kind of not, I don't want to say I'm essentially equalizing strokes gain off the tee to an aspect of distance. However, I'm diminishing it to an extent, right? Because I think the approach to green is that much more important this week. So Bryson was in that category. Rory was in that category. Rahm was in that category. It was kind of a rotating door. Morikawa is the one guy I didn't want to play or fade. But yeah, no, it's tough, man. It's tough with the 10Ks. It really is.
It's my least favorite aspect of this job, but one we must do. And hopefully there's a little nugget in there that steers somebody on or off somebody. And we hear about it next week.
No doubt. Ryan and Ryan, what's going on, brother? Thanks for hopping in. All right, man. I'll go ahead and hop into 9Ks. I think a guy that you just kind of have to play. I know he's at the top of the 9,000 range, but Vicky Hovland, you have to play him, in my opinion. If he's not on your team, I'll be surprised, but we'll see. The dude has no real flaws outside of chipping the golf ball. His putting's improved. His around the green game needs to get better. He's been the first to admit that. But again, he's been a model of consistency. The guy hits fairways. The guy is third, 22nd strokes gain approach to green, fifth, in stroke gains total. He's pretty much as a complete player as you can find out there, in my opinion. And he's continuously does not let you down. He's been there. I think the big win is on the horizon for him. If it's this week, it certainly could be. But he's a guy I'm definitely going to play. I'm going with Hideki, man. I'm going with Hideki. And I actually was pleasantly surprised with Hideki at Kiawah, because we were like, we didn't know what we were going to really see from Hideki. He'd been off for a really long time. For him to finish in the top 25 at Kiawah was impressive. Again, a guy that is in the top 20 in strokes gained approach to green. Our guy All Falcon Day would tell us it's just the mystery of the putter with Decky. And so I'm gonna roll with him still. He's a past winner here. We know he's got game. And so we'll see. We'll see from there. And then again, this one I kind of flip-flopped on a lot because I actually liked Day's guy Corey Connors a little bit. I did. I wanted to play the Corey Connors, but I'm going to go back to the old Patrick Reed well. Patrick Reed plays tough golf courses well. And he's one of the top 5 putters on the planet. I'm going with that this week. He's got 5 top 10s on the year. He missed the cut last week. He's kind of been, Nick, to be honest with you, man, he's kind of been one of those guys we've been referring to. It's like, what Patrick Reed are we getting on what week? I just know that I'm picking all the right weeks for all these guys, just so everybody knows that. So I'm going with Patrick Reed. I just like the way his game sets up for this golf course. It's going to play tough. You're going to have to get the ball up and down around the greens. I'm going to go with Patrick Reed. Thanks, Ryan.
Who are you fading?
Thanks, Ryan. My fade is going to be Scotty Sheffler. And that might come to some surprise to you. His form, and I don't want to say his form has been kind of going downhill, but missed the cut last week. It just hasn't been as sharp as it was. There was a certain time there for a couple months span that Scotty Sheffler was constantly on top of leaderboards. For me, I thought he was the guy out of this wave that I was going against, because it also backed up what I have been believing in. He's 127th in approach to the green. Kind of recent form. I just want to go. I'm thinking he hasn't been as sharp as he was, and I'm not comfortable playing Scotty Sheffler this week. I thought he would have a big week last week, to be honest with you, at Colonial, because why not? Why wouldn't
he?
And he was disappointing to shoot 3 over and miss the cut.
So you're playing Hovland, you're playing Reed.
And Decky.
Okay. And then you're fading Sheffler. All right. So then I'll keep Justin in the middle here. So Justin said he was going to play Victor Hovland. He thought he was elite and in good form, so that was a check for him. He decided to team that up with some Corey Connors action. He noted that he gained 5 strokes on approach last week, and that was worthy of a play there. And then his third pick was Tony Finau.
He hurts me too often. I'm just been too hurt. I can't go back to the well.
And he said 2 top 10s and 6 starts. So then his fade was Patrick Reed. He said he was too inconsistent, and he noted his 4 miscuts in 12 starts.
He's not wrong about that. I mean, trust me. I feel dirty about it a little bit, but that was the guy that I ended up going with. I don't know. Tell me you have Patrick Reed somewhere.
So I'm gonna go bottom up. So
okay. Bottoms up.
Bottoms up. So I looked at the 9, and the more I started looking, the more absolutely like scared I got, because I really liked everybody here but one guy. And so the one guy in the 9K range that turned out to be like the fade of the week for me was I too am fading Scotty Sheffler. Like everybody else seemed like a step above for whatever reason. And I can make a case for just about everybody, but I had a really hard time making any kind of case for Sheffler when compared to everybody else. So, I mean, you look at his form. So in his last 9 starts, he's got 2 missed cuts, but then he's got 3 additional finishes between 29 and 54. So half the time he's not pulling anywhere near his weight. So that doesn't work. His, course history is kind of minimal. I mean, he missed the cut at the workday, but then he got the 22nd. So, I mean, pick your poison. Don't really know what you're going to get there. So he's got some rounds since Valero, which is good. So, I mean, I'm looking at all the samples, whether it's 10 or you're up on that 28 to 30 range, but he's got 22. But the thing that stood out to me, he's 75th approach last 22 rounds, 71st around the green, and 78th with the putter. So, I mean, he's in the back half of the field, in 3 of the 4, key strokes gains things there. He might be able to dial up one of them better, but I have a hard time believing at this kind of place he's just going to get all of that working. And then you look at the last 24 rounds, 68th in bogeys. Again, it's going to put him, kind of close to the middle, but then he's 112th in pars. There's only 120 people in the field. So definitely some volatility in the game. So
roller coaster.
So Sheffler was a easy fade. So as far as the plays go, so I'm going to start, and I feel a little dirty for this one too, but I do it really because of the model. I have to protect the asset. So I'm going to play Tony Finau. He was the second guy after JT that ranked in the top 20% of the major category groupings in the model. So if I'm going to play JT, I'm going to play Finau, for the same reasons. But, he's got the 4 top 15s in the 6 starts over the course, which is pretty good. He's got 5 top 30s, last 8 starts. As far as the comps, the way you break it down, he was 4th as far as the Nicholas, aspect of it, and then he was 19th overall. And then if you really believe in the Nicholas thing, I think he's got the course record at the tourney course, at Amex. So I definitely think he can motor around and throw up a low number. I'm not saying he'll do it round 1, but if he hangs around, he's somebody to probably watch, and he's had decent success here. The Sense Valero, so for him, that's only a 16-round sample. So he didn't light it up like everybody else, but he's still 31st in approach, which is a pretty good number. But with the 16 rounds, he was actually first around the green, which I actually thought may come out to help him a little bit. Last 24 rounds, it's pretty balanced with the stuff I like. 35th driving distance, 38th greens and reg, 31st sand saves, 26th in bogeys, or 26th in birdies, and 17th in bogeys. He's doing enough stuff in the upper end of the field that he should show up. You know what they say? I mean, if you want everybody to show up, there's going to be somebody that won't and crash and burn. But he's probably going to be 20% owned. But and hopefully it's not him. Speaking of 20% owned, considering where we were with him a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to try Patrick Cantlay and cross my fingers and buckle up for the ride from Hill.
All right.
So
let's do it, man. Let's do it.
I mentioned early about the all-around game. The guys that don't have the all-around game, I also started looking for elite in the 2 of the 4 categories. So since April 1st, again, it's about the time since Valero, he is in the top 10% of the field in off the tee and approach. So he ranks 6th and 13th, which is, and a lot of it's just due to the the couple of last couple of rounds, but still it's a pretty high mark compared to everybody else. He is top 20% of every major model category except course history, but I didn't really weight it so much for the wins. I looked actually overall at more consistent performance over a longer period of time. So, I mean, the win definitely counted something, but I'm more likely to chase guys that have, 4, 5, 6, top 15s, 20s, things like that, than I am just for the one win. I mean, Tiger won it 5 times because Tiger is Tiger freaking Woods. But other than that, I have a hard, there's not too many guys that are going to show up at the same place and win multiple events. Cantlay, so he's got 2 top 10s in here. It's 4 top 50s. I mean, that's actually pretty, decent course history for sure. He got the top 10 at the workday as well. He got 23rd in his last start. I know they were looking really awful there, but I'd rather catch a guy a week early than a week late. So if he could build off that and come to a place he likes, and find the course and the tweaks to his liking, maybe he can, run up another elite set of, ball striking numbers. As far as the comps go, he's actually third with the Nicklaus. So again, he's another guy that, likes playing on, Jack's courses and does pretty well. Just depends if you really believe that whole, East Coast, what is it? East Coast Cantlay versus West Coast Cantlay?
Yeah.
Or is it Southeast Cantlay? I can't remember, but so I'm a little nervous about that, but I guess we'll see what shows up, or maybe he's got a new lady friend on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's amazing how that works out sometimes, but still, even with that, he's 22nd in the field as far as the way I built the comps in the model. So I thought that was pretty strong. And then looking at his last 24, 17th in birdies, 5th in bogeys, 25th in driving distance, and 7th in greens and regs. So he's another guy that really should show up. And I hate the fact that he's as highly owned as he is, but you go where the model takes you and you go where the stats take you.
Yeah.
So that is Finau, that is Cantlay, and then I'm going to take Victor Hovland as well. I really wanted, if I could have taken more guys, I would have probably taken Reed, and then I probably would have taken Decky too. I mean, I like the 5. I'm probably happier with those 5 guys than I am probably the guys at the top of the board, with the exception of Spieth. So, but can only take 3, and Hovland made sense. So Hovland was the third guy that I decided to take that has the top 50 juice in all 4 strokes gained categories since April. His mark was 16 rounds, and he's 13th off the tee, 17th in approach, 10th with the putter. And, I don't even know where that came from, but he's just been putting pretty, outstanding. And I'll even take the 37th around the green. I mean, that's going to put you in the, upper third of the field for sure. So if he can, at least maintain his, baseline for the last 2 months, he should be right there on Sunday, without question. So he's got 5 top 30s in his last 5 starts. I mean, he got 3rd at the workday. So obviously, he can get around okay. 18th with the Nicklaus aspect of the comps, 10th with the comps overall. He is, let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. So not only is he balanced in all 4, he is top 10% of the field. He's one of those dual qualifiers, I guess, if you will. He's top 10% with the off the tee and the putting. So just hit it a ton, get it as close as you can. Hopefully your wedge game doesn't screw it up, and you can get it to within 10 feet. But he seems to be holding his own, even if he's getting it into that 10 to 20 range. So Hovland, Finau. Who else did I take? I totally forgot now. Cantlay. Yeah, see, that's how much I wanted to play him. Cantlay. And
you're fading Scotty Sheffler.
Oh, yeah, Sheffler did it first. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I was like, wait.
Yeah, that's why you confuse yourself. You played yourself.
I played it too early, yeah.
All right, man. Yeah, it's hard not to play Victor Hovland. I just don't know. I mean, I get, from a DK perspective, potentially. I know the number's high, but, man, you just kind of have to expect that he's going to be hanging around at some point come the weekend.
It's more of if you find some guys you like at the bottom, then you could stack up high. But, you really can, if you can't, then you really have to find maybe the one guy, and let's just say it's Spieth up top. Then you have to really get comfortable with 2 guys in the, upper end of the middle. So hopefully you can find some sort of lower balanced lineup to kind of, make it work. But I did find some guys at the bottom, so I don't want to necessarily call it a stars and scrubs, but I think we can definitely swing, a lot of action up at the top and find some guys at the bottom to hopefully score enough to make it make sense. I know I've been running my mouth, but Justin you went, so I guess it's my turn to go first, and I'll let you go last this time and take Justin in the middle. So we're down to the 8K range. I'm going to start with Keegan Bradley. So he was 13th in the model, and he is actually at the low end of the 8Ks, right at 8,000. But he checked a lot of boxes for me. Form-wise, last 7 starts, they've all been top 30 or better, which is pretty crazy considering he's, Keegan Bradley and where he was. I mean, we, know where he was.
Keegan Bradley. However, you're right. He was lost.
Yes. Keegan Bradley was awesome. Keegan Bradley got lost. Keegan Bradley is now found, and hopefully he stays found for at least one more week. And, he manages some at least baseline average or better putting, week here. So the form's good. He's played 10 times and he's got 6 top 50s or better. So I think, being in the better form, I think he could probably, work his way around the course, pretty well and put up a pretty good number. As far as the comp aspect, he is 26th as far as the Nicklaus goes. So he's had some success on some of, Jack's courses. Looking at the markup of the strokes gained since Valero. So that's 16 rounds for him. So he was 21st off the tee, 18th with approach, 9th around the green, which is insane when you think about it.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then 65th with the putter. So he's, slightly below average, right around average. So again, if he could maintain that, I would really be stunned if he didn't, pull a top 10. And then you want to look at, balance form over, 24 rounds. 28th in birdies, 25th in bogeys, 32nd in sand saves, 28th in driving distance, 12th in driving accuracy, 16th greens and reg. So he checks a lot of boxes. The 8,000 is good for DraftKings. The outright, odds are, I think favorable for, and show some value, whether you get him higher or lower, somewhere around 50, whether you get him 45, 50, 55, 60, I think there's still some juice there. So I think that's worth a play too. I went one up in the model for my second choice. I decided to go back to the Louis Oosthuizen and give it a shot. I don't have a problem paying some international golfers, when they make sense, and just based on the run he's, of good form he's been on for, a period of time. I'm going to give it a shot that, this course is going to play hard and he's going to have the discipline and patience to work his way through it. And especially if it, I'm hoping it gets into that, maybe 10, 11, 12, but if I'm wrong and, the course kicks, some butt and, you're back in that, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 range, that's going to be better for, grinders and, your him and, your Matthew Fitzpatrick's of the world and things like that. But Usti's got 4 top 30s in his last 4 starts. So that's, pretty consistent. He's got 3 made cuts in 4 trips. He's got, the way I marked up the tee to green, he's 22nd in the field. Again, it's more weighted towards the approach and around the green versus the off the tee stuff. And that's kind of where he's been falling back lately. It sends Valero. Again, that's kind of the mark I've been using. He's 4th in the field and approach, 24th around the green, and 9th with the putter. So he's getting it done 2nd, 3rd, 4th shots. But his off the tee game's a little, wonky. But again, I think at a place like this, if he can just keep it in play and avoid the rough, I think the rest of his game will take over, even if he's, not exactly where he wants to be. Last 24 rounds, he is 1st in bogeys in the field, 12th in birdies, 8th greens and reg, and 33rd in driving accuracy. So that gives me a little bit of hope that even with the wonky off the tee game, that maybe it's not as terrible as some of the strokes gained stats make you believe it to be. So then the third way I went with, and this was kind of a tough one for me, but I decided to chase Joachim Neiman one more time. I was a little bummed last week. I expect a little bit more, but I think the course seems to be a bit of a better fit for him on paper. And there's a couple of different ways you really could have gone with this third guy, but I was comfortable going here. 8,800 on DraftKings, that's a pretty good number, and it works, affords you some balanced lineups in that upper end. But he's got 8 top 50s or better in his last 8 starts, so the form has been consistently good for a longer period of time. He's only played the course 3 times, but he's got a 6th, the 27th, and a miscut. And he was still 31st at the workday. So I think, if he's in a better run than last year, I think he can, get it around pretty good. He is 21st ranked putter according to the model, that I mocked up. So he's got some putting chops for sure. 33rd as far as the Nicklaus goes, and 20th as far as the comps. Looking at his last 20 rounds, basically, again, that's a period of time since Valero. 19th off the tee, 27th with approach. So his, ball striking is pretty good, and 18th with the putter. So if he can scramble around and, maybe avoid the rough, here's hoping he, can get his head out of his butt and have a pretty good week. And that shows up last 24 with 4th driving distance, 26 greens and reg, 45th in bogeys, and 26th in pars. So I really, for as much as I loved the 9K range and found it easy to fade, I didn't like the 8K as much, and I found it tougher to fade. If there's any one thing that, I wish maybe I would go down and maybe consider dropping a whole vat of whiteout on. It's my notes in front of me here. But an answer to your question, I have sadly elected to fade Ricky Fowler. I know. There's stuff there that, I want to believe in the resurgence. I do. And if there's a place where some good stuff could happen, or at least he could earn his keep as far as DraftKings go, maybe it's here. But I mean, he's got 4 miscuts in the trips here. So it's not always been a great course, but he's got, it's been kind of a mixed bag. But the fact that he's, missed a couple of rounds here, makes me think, okay, so he's having if he comes in as the off Ricky that we've known for the last year, then he may end up on the wrong side of the, cut line. So, I mean, that could be a negative there. I mean, you look at his form, he's still got 3 missed cuts in his last 6 starts. Again, maybe I'm jumping off, and maybe I'm afraid to get back on. Maybe Ricky's done me dirty. Maybe I'm sad, and I'm afraid. But since Valero, and again, his sample size is really kind of small. He's got only 12 rounds, but 60th around the green, middle of the pack, and he's still even 53rd with the putter. But those are only 2 things I could really find. So, I mean, he could really be there, but I got to fade somebody. And then the last 24, 81st in bogeys, 78th in pars, 86th green and reg, 65th in birdies, and even 109th in double bogey. So when he misses, he's apparently missing big. And, the other thing that stood out looking at the comps, but again, they're more recent basically has been struggling for a little bit of time. He was 70th as far as the comps go. So I'm not really sure where I would have gone if I didn't fade Ricky, because I think I would have had to make a pretty hardline stand on somebody. And so he was the easiest of the tough stands to make, but I still don't feel good about it. So, and he's probably going to be low enough owned where, if you hit right and you play enough of him, I could totally see you doing well with him. All right, really quick. Our man Justin here, he has decided to play Oosthuizen as well. You noted he's got 3 top 10s in his last 7 starts. He is riding Shane Lowry one more time, 3 top 10s in his last 6 starts. And he is on the Cam Smith train, tied for first in par 5 scoring. And he has got some great numbers for around the green and putting. So it sounds like Justin is believing that it's going to be a bit of a short game feast as well. And he has decided to fade Sam Burns. He's coming off the withdrawal, and he didn't really care for his 2 miscuts here. So that's where Justin's at. He's fading Burns. He's playing Oosty. He is playing Cam Smith, and he is playing Shane Lowry. What do you have, good friend pro?
Yeah, not going to hit much more on Keegan Bradley, but I love Keegan Bradley as well. Talk about a guy that's had a really damn good year. To your point, kind of went away for a while there. The putter ban kind of changed things. I don't know. Just to touch on, I'm not going to play Ricky, but I'm going to make a rule that I'm not going to fade Ricky just out of being a good person. Now, you can jump on the wagon next week if you want, but just out of being just a nice person and rooting for Ricky's success, I can't fade him. But anyway, I'm taking Matt Fitzpatrick to the points that you were kind of making earlier. To his extent, he plays well on tough golf courses. I don't love his approach to green, so I'm just going to overlook everything I've said earlier. And just kind of hammer home that the dude's short game's fantastic. He can get the ball in the hole. So he's going to be my second pick. He had a top 25 at Kiowa, which kind of under the radar. I think the dude just plays solid at difficult tracks. And I'm with Justin. I'm all in Shane Lowry time. Let's go into Shane Lowry. I know he's not fancy, but look back at Kiowa. He kind of quietly had a top 5 at Kiowa, middle of the pack in strokes gained approach to green, but it all comes down to the putter for him. He's kind of a wild card pick as far as I'm concerned. I'm actually going to fade Sung J M in this range, and just because of recent form. For a guy that plays a lot, that we talk about a lot, he's missed 2 out of his last 3 cuts. He's 94th in strokes gained approach to green. I just don't love the form. So I will go with Keegs. Matt Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, and fade Sungjae Im. I will leave my man Rickster alone for the time being.
I hate really picking on the low hanging fruit too, but it was tough to really kind of find another way to go. I mean,
I don't think he's necessarily low hanging fruit anymore, though. Like he was playing really, really bad. He's been playing somewhat better, so I don't think he's low hanging fruit anymore. But yeah, you're right. You have to consider
in that 8K range, though. I mean, like, there's just a lot of guys that have enough stuff working that you're just really making something bigger that's probably really not there. That's kind of why they're maybe in the 8s versus the 7s, or even if they were the upper 8s, you'd probably play them. I mean, they're just all kind of thrown together, and hopefully you hit on one. So I don't hate the I'm pick, and Lowry's actually got some juice for sure, and I think he wants to do well here. I mean, I the big tourneys in Europe are coming up too. So I'm sure he's definitely trying to round his game in form and get ready for that too. So I don't hate it. I think it's pretty good.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll just jump into 7K then. Stuart Sink. I'm gonna continue to play Stuart Sink. I don't even need to tell you anything. I'm gonna continue to play Stuart Sink while he's in that range because he's had a ridiculous year. He played well at Kiowa. He, of course, has 2 wins. He falls in category with Maestro's or my approach to the green statistic. I find it hard at this point not to play him, so I'm going to roll with him. Another guy that I've been kind of liking is Kevin Shrillman, another guy that tee to green's a fantastic player. He fits kind of what I'm liking this week, and he's at 7,500. Christian Bezuidenhout, which I'm probably is going to be on a Nick roster, I think, when we get back to him. I would expect. Talk about a guy that's a master around the greens.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pull up any statistic on this guy. This guy is as good as it gets around the greens. I think his value in the 7K range is there. For me, a guy that – I mean, Jason Day. I'm just going to fade Jason Day, and I feel good about it. His game's just not there. He's missed cut in 3 of the last 4 tournaments. From a guy that had a trajectory of multiple major championships, it seems to have just kind of injuries, the back. It's just hard for me to not to fade Jason Day here, and I didn't want to go down. I wanted to fade somebody somewhat up there. So Jason Day is going to be the one here for me.
Yeah, I think I saw the quote that said that, I'm paraphrasing again, but, he basically said that the putter was his own world. It was like the thing that made him go. And when he stopped, he lost a little confidence in the putter and, didn't trust it, and it just wasn't working for him. So when the putter disappeared, everything else disappeared too. So maybe at a level playing field, maybe being like one of those guys that lives in Ohio, maybe he's got some secret rounds on here. So maybe he finds something, maybe like Ricky, and gets back on a road to something. But yeah, I don't hate it. But yeah, it is kind of sad when you see the guys that, actually had some, good success just fall off hard, fast, and out of nowhere.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I will give Justin props next, and he starts with Gary Woodland. It's all caps. It's got exclamation points. He's got 3 of them, so he's super excited apparently, and he's super going to play him. That's just super.
Listen, Gary's been playing better, and we know Justin loves. We know he loves Gary.
We all have our guys, and Woodland's definitely one for him too. Patton Kizzire is next on his list. He said he is 5th in approach and 4th tee to green last week. So he had a good week. He's going to ride the recent form, which is good. He is going to play some Doug Gim. He gained 4 strokes on approach last week. Again, going to ride the recent form, and he is going to fade Max Homa. He said his form is fading. So Justin is on board with Woodland, Kizzire, Doug Gim, and he's going to fade Max Homa. So my turn. Yeah, I'm going to play Gary Woodland too.
Gary.
It's a party, man. It's a party for sure. So, you look closely at him. He's got 5 top 40s in his last 7 starts. Um, Sneaky was actually talking about those guys that are matched up in the strokes gained categories. He's another one of those guys that's technically in the top 50 of all 4 since the Valero. So that's 22 rounds for him. So he is 50th with the putter, 41st around the green, 24th in approach, and 38th off the tee. So as long as the back doesn't give out and he keeps going, I think his game will show up well here. Last 24 rounds, he is 5th in driving distance, 13th in sand saves, 31st in bogeys, and 25th in bogeys. I'm sorry, 31st in birdies, 25th in bogeys. He got a 5th at the workday, and then he's got 5 top 25s or top 25s or better in 10 starts at the course. So I think he likes it here. And then kind of sizing up the picture, and when I mocked up the tee to green game for him, he's 27th. He's actually the 30th ranked putter in the field the way I drew it up on bent over the 36 rounds with the other subcategories. And then he ranks out 44th with the other stats. So for a 7,900 guy that the model ranked out 36th, I think it's actually a pretty good stab. I don't normally chase. Let me rephrase that. It's rare that I chase old guys, but I was really stunned to see Stuart Sink ranked out 15th in my model. And the price is good at 7,500. The outright odds are good, but breaking it down, so he was the 26th overall guy in course history the way I did the model. And looking at it up close, I'm taking workday out of it, but he's got 16 of 17 made cuts. I didn't even count that, but I just went looking up close just to see what's there. And of the 16 made cuts, 13 of 16 were top 40 or better. Granted, it's a whole lot easier to play a course when you're 30 versus pushing 50, but whatever sink juice he's been on to just kill the ball, off the tee like he's been doing it, if he can just keep doing it, I think he'll be okay here. Looking at the comps, it's pretty balanced. I mean, again, he's got the larger sample size compared to, just because he's been around, but 31st on the Nicklaus, 32nd with the comps overall. So I think this course is going to play in his wheelhouse. He's 50th ranked putter in the field the way the model, broke it up. 37th with the modified tee to green, and then he's 12th as far as the other stats. But even since Valero, he's 3rd in the field in approach, 45th around the green, and 12th with the putter. But taking that in the other direction, he's 11th in the field in driving distance. So just keep it in play and let the rest of your game, or muscle it down there, stay out of the rough and let the rest of your game, take over. And I think he's going to be up there again. 35th in birdies, 25th in bogeys, 5th greens and reg, and 10th in sand saves. I'm not saying he could win. I'm not even sure he'll top 10, but for that kind of price, I think the 15th is really a good spot. So, some top 20 action on him makes a whole lot of sense to me there. So I've got Sink, I've got Woodland, and I'm not as confident in this one just because I feel like, guys go on runs and whether it runs, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, you go on some crazy 3-month, form bender, but I'm wondering if he's maybe starting to tail off a little, but I'm going to try Matt Wallace yet again. He's another guy since the Valero that has maxed out in the top 50 of all 4 of the strokes gained categories. So that's 24 rounds for him. He's 14th off the tee, 32nd in approach, 31st around the green, and 47th with the putter. That's pretty well rounded. So if he could just maintain that, again, he should show up pretty well here. He got 39th at the workday, and then he got 4th, here last year. So he plowed through last year, and I really don't think he was in nearly the form that he was in then that he's in now. So if he got 4th last year, I don't see why he can't really contend again. He's got, as far as the form though, now just to speak on it, he's got 8 made cuts in a row, and 6 of the 8 are top 50 or better. So that's, pretty, outstanding as far as I'm concerned. Last 24 rounds, he is 20th in birdies, 20th in bogeys, 27th in driving distance, 28th in driving accuracy, 22nd in sand saves, and 30th greens and reg. That's just middle of the road all around goodness. And for a 7,400 guy that the model still only had at 44th, I'm going to play that and, ride that to hopefully a massive green screen. So I struggled trying to figure out a fade in this range, and I had a couple of guys on my radar, and like you, I kind of wanted a little name factor to kind of like pop, and at least so I just didn't pick like some boring guy that just barely squeaked up in the 7,000 range. So I'm going to fade Bubba. So he's played here 13 times, and 8 of the 13 he's scored 30th or worse. Not, I mean, he could still make the cut, and for his price point, the 30th may turn out to be okay. But if you're needing an elite guy, I'm not sure that this is a quote unquote Bubba course. But if you believe in the Masters angle, maybe he can get his move the ball around with these new, things Jack's put in, and maybe he'll surpass the prior. So I didn't weigh it too much. I'm just looking for a guy not to play. And that was one, aspect of it. His recent form's actually been okay. I mean, nothing to really scream and say, oh my God, like, what a run he's on, but he's not sucking either. He's just kind of in that above average range. Last 24 rounds, he's 80th in birdies. So he's really just been more plugging it around, really just trying to do what he can do and stay out of trouble. But since Valero, in that 16 rounds, what I didn't like as a whole, he's 98th in approach, 67th around the green, and 58th with the putter. He may show up, but I think he's more likely to just, plug it around and maybe make the cut, or if he misses, he'll, or if he makes it, he'll make it on the number, make it by 1, or, he'll miss by 1. But Bubba at 7,800, 56th in the model, kind of close to that cut line, or slightly above the cut line. Yeah, I'll just take a pass. There are other guys in the 7Ks that I think give you better value, that have a greater upside.
I hear you, man. I don't disagree. Bubba plays well on certain golf courses. Some weeks he shows up, some weeks he doesn't. Let's finish with some value plays on your end, or if you want to, you can start with Justin, whatever the hell you want to do over on your end there.
All right. So Justin said Adam Hadwin, he led the field in strokes gained approach last week. So for 6,700, and where did we have him in the model? Goodness gracious, where are you? Give me just a second here. Yeah, 50th. So that's actually a pretty good spot for a 6,700 guy. Certainly. So he had Adam Hadwin, and then he marked up Alex Noren at 6,800, who was 47th in the model. And he also tabbed Russell Knox, who was 46th in the model. Knox is at 6,100, and Alex Noren's at 68. Those were the 3 guys he tapped. Since I've got a list and most of them are mine, I'll go at the end if that's all right. So if you got anybody you want to throw in,
yeah, I'll just throw in a few. A guy that we've talked about, that Richie Rorinsky, he showed up on leaderboards there at the PGA, which I thought was a very difficult setup. He's kind of had a sneaky good year for a young player on tour that's kind of under the radar. I'm going to go back to the Michael Thompson well, even though it was somewhat disappointing the last time I went to it. I'm just going to go back there. I'm not going to tell you why. I just feel like, listen, we're looking for value here. He missed a cut last week, but he has a top 10 this year. He's solid on the greens. We'll go with him. My third guy is going to be Luke List. Luke List is solid in strokes gained off the tees in top 15. 72nd in strokes gained approach to green. I get that's not necessarily my greatest thing that I'm going with here, but he's had 3 top 10s this year. I think for a guy that has 3 top 10s and is showing up multiple times, he's really had a solid year. And I think you can get some value. I know he's at the top of the 6,000 range, but I do like him to make the cut and potentially, bank a top 25, something along those lines.
Well, to piggyback and hopefully end on a high note, I actually stumbled on 6 guys, but Justin took 2 of them, so I'll start there. So Knox was number 1, or the highest ranked 6K guy we had in the model. He was 46th, I believe. Yeah, 46th in the model, 6,100 on DraftKings, and at the time of model publication, looked like he was about 160 to 1. So he's got 5 of 7 made cuts here on the course, which is pretty decent. Maybe he seems to, maybe we're a week early, but I'll take a stab at it because he's got 3 top 40s in his last 4 starts after just a run of just abysmal golf the last couple of months. But since Valero, it's 18 rounds for him. He's 20th in the field and approach and 47th around the green. So for a 6,100 guy, I mean, basically priced at the bottom. I mean, that's some, upper end stuff there. You look at his 24 rounds, he's 6th in pars in the field. He's 20th in bogeys, 20th in driving accuracy, and 9th in greens and reg. I think his form probably warranted the 61, but I think he's just probably severely underpriced. And if you play the ownership game, he's probably half the ownership of Kyle Stanley, who would be number 2. Probably by the time the model comes out tomorrow, Stanley's probably going to be 11, 12% owned, possibly more. I think everybody is plugging in Kyle Stanley as your free square down below and hoping that he can help you, snag 2 guys at the top. I get it. I see it. But 6K chalk rarely works out well for me. So if he's really going to be that owned, and the fact that, it picked up Knox before it picked up Stanley, if I'm going to chase somebody at 61, I'm probably going to chase Knox. But Stanley's interesting because over the 18 rounds since the Valero, he's 18th off the tee, 23rd in approach, which is pretty like top line stuff right there. 54th around the green. And the only thing that's just been short is the putter. So if he can make a couple of putts, but his course history, he's got 4 top 40s and 7 trips here. So I think he can, get around here pretty good. And then what's kind of scary, which I hadn't really realized, he's got 5 top 40s in his last 7. So he's actually been, showing up pretty well. His last 24 rounds, he's 23rd in driving accuracy, 41st greens and reg, 3rd in pars. And even with the comps, he checks out at 40. So those are probably 2 of the craziest 6,100 guys I've seen in a long time. And yet they're in the same tourney in the same field. Third guy I dug up was going to be Troy Merritt, the other end of the 6K range at 6,900. What's interesting about him, the 20 rounds since Valero, he's 23rd around the green, 17th with a putter, and 54th in approach. So he's got 3 of the 4 things, working, relatively well. He's got 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts. I didn't even know that till I started looking, which is insane. So if he can, he shot pretty well. I think it was round 3, round 4, he made a move last weekend at some point, shot some ridiculous round.
He sure did.
So if he can, put up one of those, this week, he'll be right there and probably give you good value at the 69. He is last 24 rounds, just to back it up. He's 16th driving accuracy, 39th greens and reg, 30th in sand saves, 24th in birdies, 34th in pars, and 14th in bogeys. So those are 3, and just Justin touched on Alex Noren. He's interesting in the sense that he's got 5 straight made cuts. He's 6th. The model marked him out 6th in putting. Last 24 rounds, he's 30th in driving distance, 31st driving accuracy, 16th in pars, 16th in bogeys. And then his 16 rounds since the Valero, just under the mark. Surprising. 48th off the tee, 11th around the green, 45th with the putter, but he's 69th in approach. So if he can just tune it up a little bit, I think he could plug around here, pretty good. And he's played the course a little bit, so he's definitely familiar. I was probably happier with the 2 last guys I found, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's a shit hits the fan kind of week, but it's a CT Pan week for me, my friend. 60th in the model, 6,900 on DraftKings. He is 175 to 1. So the model dug up the 17th as far as the Nicklaus specialist aspect of the comp. So he tends to like Jack's courses a little bit. He hasn't played as much recently, but he still has 2 top 35s in his last 2 starts. He's got 2 top 45s and 2 trips here, plus the 48th at the workday. Last 24 rounds, he's 33rd in pars and 9th in sand saves. And then if you look at his 12 rounds since Valero, he is 10th around the green, 68th in approach, 54th off the tee, and 66th in putting. I think he should make the cut and then some. And then probably the sneakier one is 6,600. He's 400 to 1, and that's Camila Villegas. He's got 10 consecutive made cuts here at Muirfield Village. They've all been between 28 and 70. So I'm hoping we can go 11 for 11. He's got 4 top 25s in his last 6 starts. So the form is there. Last 24 rounds, he's 26th in pars, 8th in sand saves. And then the 16 rounds since Valero, he is 46th with approach, 6th around the green, and 38th with the putter. So those are probably my 6 favorite guys in the 6K range that I think there's some value there.
Yeah.
I may end up on somebody else, but I'm gonna probably base most of my DraftKings lineups on those 6 guys. And there's guys in the guys at the top, guys at the bottom. So there's no reason I think, and I think I've done a pretty decent job of.
You've made a hell of a case for kind of all of those guys. So I mean, that's those are kind of plugs that I actually like when I'm doing things is starting with a guy like that, saying, hey, let's start with a low guy and then kind of work our way up, instead of like when you pick the guy that's way at the top, you kind of get the intimidation factor on your remaining salary as far as DFS is concerned. So sometimes starting with the guys at the bottom that you really like and kind of working your way up, I think is kind of a good way to look at it.
I find myself doing the same thing, because if I go at top to bottom and see that I only have 64, I'm going to freak out and just pick the 64 guy, when really the 61 guy is probably the guy I should play. So
Exactly.
I think it's a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good approach.
So before we get out of here,
I'll walk through the optimal.
Let's hop on the optimal, man. It's scrolling across the bottom here. Walk us through it.
So let me pull up this as well. Bear with me 1 second. So the models spit out this week a lineup that actually used the full 50,000, and it calculated it about 533.3 points. I think it's a pretty good number considering the last couple of tourneys. But it bagged Jordan Spieth. He's number 1 in the model. He is 11,300. Then it dropped to Patrick Cantlay. He is number 4 in the model. He is 9,500. Then it decided to go to Keegan Bradley. He is 13th in the model, and he is 8,000. It went back to our old friend Cameron Tringale. He is 20th in the model at 7,600. It went to go visit our new good friend Stuart Sink. He's 15th at the model, 7,500, and it ended up dropping down to see my favorite 6,100 player, Russell Knox. And I think he is 46th in the model. So I don't know. I could have dreamed up that lineup at the beginning of the week, but I could see why it went where it went. You've got some form, you've got some stats, you've got some course history. I mean, it uses it up.
I like it.
If you're not a Spieth guy, I mean, certainly you could play one of the other guys at the top, but Spieth's probably the guy I'd play. It's probably more of the if I'm not a Cantlay guy, then figure out where you want to go in the 9K range. But there's good value there for sure.
I love it, man. I agree. If you're not a Spieth guy, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. Did our guy Justin send any outrights into you?
Oh, let's see. He is going to play Cam Smith. He said he had him at 55-1. He's going to play Shane. He got some Shane Lowry action at 60-1. He was going to drop some top 5 action at Tony Finau. Looks like he got him at 5-1. And he was going to play Gary Woodland, some top 10 action at 4-1. Not bad. Not bad.
Anything you like?
Well, I'll run through this really quick. So in honor of my guest hosting experience yesterday, I decided to dig up some finishing position odds. So I'm going to work bottom up. So top 40 range, I mentioned Villegas. I'm going to play him. And these are all plus 200 or better. I think Villegas, I got it plus 335, which I thought was pretty good. Russell Knox, I'm going to take. I got him at plus 200 for a top 40. I liked Antoine Rosner as well. I got him a little better. I got him at plus 450. Top 30, I got Lucas Glover at 225. I got Pat Kazire, who I know Justin liked, at 200. And then from the top 20 angle, I took Tringale. He's been good to us. I'm not sure I'm going to play him top. I didn't like him outright enough, but I'm going to return the favor, at least play him top 20. I got him at plus 200. I'm going to take the Sink action top 20 at 225. And then I'm going to play Chris Kirk at 300. And as far as the outrights, I'm going to take Kirk at 110. Just because I believe that I feel like this is one of those due tourneys, right? So who's been playing well enough that should have a win that doesn't? Like, who do the gods owe this week? So I feel like, maybe Kirk. If Phil can win, why can't Sink win another one here? I'll just, I pled my case as to why I like him. And then Mark, Twitter, Golf Pets 101, he mentioned all three of these, and in terms of the model and as far as the value compared to what the DraftKings odds were, I liked his card, so I tailed his card. I'm going to play Decky at 30 just because I'm not sure that I'll get to him in DraftKings. I'm going to play Patrick Reed at 35 again. I think 35 for Reed is a big number, and if you believe in the Masters comp, I think if you don't have him, if you don't get the daily fantasy aspect of it, you should take some sort of outright action. So I'm going to take him at 35, and then I'm going to take Keegan Bradley at 50. I think he's due out of anybody here. If I had to probably narrow it down on one, further down the board, I would say that maybe this is the tourney that Bradley goes and gets. I'm probably wrong, but at 50 to 1, I'm going to take a shot. So Decky, Reed, Bradley, Sink, and Kirk, and then I'll republish my finishing positions with the article tomorrow and out on Twitter as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I like it. I'm of course, I'm going to take Spieth. I'm kind of surprised Spieth's betting odds. I know it's 16 to 1. I know it's somewhat low, but I thought it would be higher up the board, to be honest with you, more in the 11 to 1 to 14.
But that's still actually good value, considering I saw I didn't like Rahm as much, and Rahm was in that 9 to 12 range. So I'm not saying I tend to subscribe to the, hey, I don't really like going that low either. But again, if you believe in your guy, there's value at the 16. So take it. I don't hate it.
I agree. And I'm also going to go with, I will go with Keegan Bradley as well, that we talked about. I don't know what you got him at. I think it's 50 to 1. Yeah, 50 to 1 is what I see it at. I will also go with Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed's value seems completely off this week to me. You kind of touched on it a little bit. And then I will also take your guy who I didn't play in any lineups, but Cameron Tringali at 80 to 1 is what I see him at now. It could be different on your end. He's outside of one terrible 9 holes at the PGA Championship. He's been sneaky good all year long. So I will take I'll take him as well. And of course we'll come up with a consensus tomorrow and whatever and send that out. But of course, your picks and my picks. But yeah, man, anything else you want to get into?
Nah, it's a juicy tourney with a good field. Lots of betting opportunities out there. I think there's still good value, so get into it. There's still some, good size DraftKings, tourneys out there too. So, join in. Article will come out tomorrow. Boss Man will be back, next week. We'll touch on, the Palmetto at Congaree, US Open the week after. Hopefully Justin will be all squared away to, get back with us so we can get the gang back. But some great golf coming. Looking forward to seeing how the course plays out. And let's cash some winners. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's have some fun.
Absolutely. Let's have a weekend, boys. It was good chatting with you, and
likewise.
I'm looking forward to Jack's tournament. It's always a good one, man. So we'll catch you guys next week. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.